So I think we can start now. Yeah. Bong, God's bong. Dharma Gathan opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Next time we'll pass out the sutra books so everybody can chant along. We're getting better at this every day, you know. It's a lot of new things for session for a couple of you first timers, right? And this is the third full day of session. So things are starting to maybe change a little bit somehow. Do you notice anything? Good, good. So I turned to the hidden lamp whenever I'm feeling a little uncertain. I go to the hidden lamp, which is 100 stories of enlightened women for the past 2,500 years. And what's really cool about this book is that there are 100 stories, a lot of them recently translated, of these enlightened women. And then there are 100 Zen Buddhist women teachers who are doing commentary, reflections on the story or the koan. Most of the koan collection that we study, and some of us are studying that right now, you know, mostly involve men, Zen masters, and their monks, right? These are cases from, I don't know how long ago really, but a long time ago, started in China. They started to codify these encounters between Zen masters and their students in their moment of enlightenment or awakening. So it was very refreshing to see this for me. And I want to share with you Ziyong's Earth. And Ziyong Shengru was a Chinese nun, abbess, and lineage holder in the Linji lineage. This is in China. She lived from 1645 to unknown, maybe sometimes 1700s. And she spent much of her life on pilgrimage and was given an honorary title by the emperor. And she was also the abbess of several monasteries or convents in Beijing and around China. So here is the story, or the koan, Ziyong's Earth. A monk asked Master Ziyong Shengru, 30 blows, are they the actions of a man or an enlightened being? 30 blows, are they the actions of a man or an enlightened being? Ziyong replied, just as long as the fellow isn't beaten to death. I mean, they used to, I used to see these movies, right? They had these huge paddles, be whacking, the man, torture, whatever punishment, be lying down on a bench, whack. I mean, those huge paddles. The monk said, when you speak, the congregation assembles like clouds. In the end, who is the great hero among women? In the end, who is the great hero among women? Ziyong said, each and every person has the sky over their head. Each and every one has the earth under their feet. I just love that. Each and every person has the sky over their head. Each and every one has the earth under their feet. That's her answer. The question of who is the great hero among women? The monk gave a shout. Ziyong said, what is the point of recklessly shouting like that? The monk then bowed respectfully, and Ziyong said, the Dharma does not rise up alone. It can't emerge without reliance on the world. If I take up the challenge of speaking, I must surely borrow the light and the dark, the form and the emptiness of the mountains and hills and the great earth, the call of the magpies and the cries of the crows. The water flows and the flowers blossom, brilliantly preaching without ceasing. In this way, there is no restraint. Let me read that again because it's so beautiful, all right? And there's a lot there, all right? So after the monk gave a shout, right? After she said this beautiful piece of each and every person has the sky over their head, each and every one has the earth under their feet, the monk gave a shout. Ziyong said, what is the point of recklessly shouting like that? Why are you doing that? The monk then bowed respectfully, and Ziyong said, the Dharma does not rise up alone. It can't emerge without reliance on the world. Right? We are deeply interconnected. If I take up the challenge of speaking, I must surely borrow the light and the dark, the form and the emptiness of the mountains and hills, and the great earth, the call of the magpies and the cries of the crows. The waters flow and the flowers blossom, brilliantly preaching without ceasing. In this way, there is no restraint. Brilliantly, without ceasing. So I want to also read parts of Eve Marko reflections on this beautiful koan. The monk asked about a great hero among women. She says, is this the real question? There certainly are great women ancestors whose names we recite. Sometimes when we do that, there's a long version of the identity and relative service that we do. We've been chanting that. And sometimes we chant all of the names, the male ancestors and the female ancestors. And certainly there are great ancestors in that lineage. But she says, do we pine for a great hero? You know, do we wish we had a hero or heroine among women here? Do we kind of look up to somebody and we compare ourselves to that hero or heroine? She says, where do we seek inspiration? Where do we seek inspiration? Certainly, there are ancestors to admire. Or, like, I admire the Dalai Lama, for example, tremendously, and his practice. She says, Ziyong tells the monk, each and every person has the sky over their head. Each and every one has the earth under their feet. Who's she talking about? All of us. We have the sky above and the earth below. In the end, it's up to us. For what? Up to us for what, right? So she says, whenever she gives the precepts, when we do our Jukai ceremony, she says, she reminds them that living the precepts calls for each person's response to what spontaneously arises in your life, right? There are going to be all kinds of situations, life situations that arise in your life. So it's really us that are responding, and we try to, we try to respond skillfully, but sometimes we fail. And I like how Roshi says, his New Year's resolution was, breaking a few eggs is okay. So, you can emulate a role model, but in the final analysis, it's you in the situation and how you respond. And then Ziyong says, she continues, right? She says, the Dharma does not rise up alone. It can't emerge without reliance on the world. We often forget that we are so interconnected here. We just think we're our own unit and it's all about me, and that's the problem, as Roshi brilliantly said yesterday in his talk. That's a big problem when it's all about me, I, me, mine. That's that small self that we have to see and try to let go. To see, when we let go of that, then we can just be in this huge, vast oneness. And Eve continues, she says, to take up the challenge of speaking, to say the unsayable and express the inexpressible, one can't stay mute. We have to speak up at times, especially when it's not, comfortable to do that, right? Because of whatever reason, fear, anxiety, we have to speak up. We have to communicate. And then Ziyong says, one must use everything, the language of dualism, the language of oneness, the smell of water, and the sound of flowers. The aliveness of life itself. We have to use everything. So everything can be a skillful means for us in how to work with our life situations. We're responsible. We're responsible. Roshi says, that's how, life is a dance. That's how we dance. And sometimes our dance may not look like a happy dance. It might be kind of a sad dance or a sick dance, but how do we respond in each situation? And Eve ends her reflection with this beautiful commentary. The forsythia outside is yellow, and the new spring leaves are green. Each preaches the Dharma according to its karmic life and condition, at the same time manifesting something timeless and essential. Each preaches the Dharma according to its karmic life and condition. So in Hawaiian, in hula, the hula world, flowers, plants, they're metaphors for humans. Then she continues, does one do it better than another? We are not identical. Each one of us, in our difference, is uniquely suited to meet life's infinitely different needs. Our individual traits, including our gender, cause us to harmonize with certain situations, or to say the precise word, take the precise action, and laugh the great laugh that expresses the inexpressible. That great laugh can be a hearty guffaw or a high tinkling giggle, a low-pitched chant, or a bird-like song. As Ziyong said, we must borrow everything, use everything. Only in this way is there no restraint. We must borrow everything, use everything. Only in this way is there no restraint. So what I think about when I read those beautiful words is, when we're in difficult situations, we can use that situation to learn, to respond to. We kind of lean in. That's our practice as Zen peacemakers, right? Eve was married to Bernie Glassman, who died. and Bernie is on our founder's altar. And Bernie was Maizumi Roshi's first successor, and he was brilliant. His name, Tetsugen, Bernie Tetsugen Glassman, the name given to him by Maizumi Roshi, means something like entering the mysteries. And his specialty, he said at one time, was the services. So I think a lot of the translations of the services is thanks to him. So his wife, Eve was his third wife. Jishu was the second wife. She's also on the founder's altar. His first wife is still alive. And Eve is, Roshi and I were really privileged to work with Eve and Bernie for a couple of years when they were trying to build a peacemaker community. And Jishu had just died of heart failure when they were in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They moved from Yonkers to Santa Fe. So it was actually Jishu, the second wife, and Bernie who came up with the beautiful Zen peacemaker tenets when they were on vacation in Maui. I'd like to add that because vacations are important. It's important to relax. You know, you can't always work. You've got to rest. That's important. So these three tenets are beautiful tenets that I try to really live in my life. And for those of you who might not know them, the first is to practice not knowing, which means to kind of let go of all of your ideas about how the world ought to be, your thoughts about how things ought to be. And that's a big one right there, to let go of knowing that Bernie, I think his last teaching before he died was, you know, if people could just say, that's your opinion, man, we'd all get along better. It should not get so solidified in your habitual thought about how something ought to be. And when you're sitting zazen, you are practicing that, not knowing. You're practicing letting go. There's a lot of letting go to practice there on the cushion, not knowing. And it doesn't mean not to know, but you know, we have some experience that is helpful and knowledge that is helpful, that helps us in our life. It's not to let go of that, and it's not either to stop learning. No, you keep learning as much as you can. That's all good. But when we get too attached to a certain way, it's good to just notice that and see, is this really true? Is this really necessary now? And you know, asking yourself these questions. Can I let this one go? And practicing, trying that, just trying and see how it works out for you. And then the second tenet is bearing witness. So you're also practicing that on the cushion. You're bearing witness to what is going on internally and what is going on around you. So you're not totally just, you know, looking one way. You're also looking around. So without the need to do anything, bearing witness is actually doing a big something. where you're just paying attention. And the third tenet is, if you do those first two really well, the third of loving action, or an action that arises because you did those two well, will happen, and it will hopefully be compassionate. So those are the three tenets. They're deep practices, and that underlies our practice here at our Zen Center. Inexhaustible practices. And they are to help ease suffering in our world. And there's a lot, right, that we bear witness to, and we let go of, a lot of thoughts as we're bearing witness, and, it just kind of. Any questions about that so far? So Ziyong was also a poet. And on her travels and her pilgrimages, she would often write about her feelings and understanding of the Dharma in poetry. So I wanted to read one of her kind of a lengthy poem called the 10 verses presented on the occasion of a gathering in the capital of my disciples to see me off. That's the title of the poem. She was leaving, I'm not sure where she was going, somewhere south, and her disciples were grieving the fact that she was leaving. So she wrote this poem on that occasion. Yesterday, my disciples spoke to me of the grief of separation as they poured out the endless sorrow that was in their hearts. I've ordered the flowers in the courtyard not to be too anxious, lest they startle the pearly dewdrops on the autumn blooms. I bought myself a light boat in anticipation of going south. A bright moon fills my breast. My empty heart feels foolish. In front of the cliffs, hidden birds sing out time and again, saying, when you reach the south, consult the 53. Who are the 53? Consult the 53. Could be the 53 disciples. Last night, the numinous blossom in my dream split in two, but when I awoke, it was as before, vast and without a trace. A heaven full of luminous moon, as clear as if just bathed. The jade waters of the Yan hills all lift the traveler's spirits. Do not slight the lazy and foolish. Both come from no mind. I love this line. Do not slight the lazy and foolish. Both come from no mind. Clouds emerge without thinking. Birds just sing their songs. The wind pierces the flowers' shimmer, their fragrance so fine. What need to seek for anything more than surprises like these? It is just that I love the Yan mountains and their jade waters, where clear breezes and bright moon complement each other. The birds in the trees know how things will turn out in the end, Flying close to my carriage, from afar they seal a vow with me. A skiff of a boat floats in the vastness under the bright moon. In northern lands or southern skies, the landscape is the same. Stop nattering on, my disciples, about how fond of me you are. When fall comes, you can expect the geese to return as before. 2 sleevefuls of springtime light as I leave the forbidden city. 1 breastful of anxious thoughts poured out toward the south. The mountains of Yan on my mind as grieving clouds thicken. But if you wait until high autumn, then its colors will become clear. The lightweight sail hangs high among the 5-colored clouds. 10,000 miles of road to travel, as far as the eye can see. Its 2 banks of reed flowers reach beyond the edge of the sky. The sun's glow rises above me at the gateway to the eastern sea. A willow-colored overcoat reminds me it is a cold time of year, and peach reds still recall the sorrowful feelings of separation, filling all the world's jade waters, 1 bright moon in the sky. If you stay and wait on Golden Terrace, you can see it very well. The Chan mind is not solitary, as clouds in the wilds know. Reed moon and plum blossom, to whom can I send them? The sorrow of parting is meaningful and so hard to dismiss. But if the way is in tune with no mind, it will go as it should. That last 2 lines, right? The sorrow of parting is meaningful and so hard to dismiss. But if the way is in tune with no mind, it will go as it should. So Roshi talked about emptiness yesterday, emptiness, no mind, no self. So this is saying, but if the way is in tune with no mind, it will go as it should. What does that mean, right? What does that mean? The sorrow of parting is hard. It's hard to say goodbye. And then she says, but if the way is in tune with no mind, it will go as it should. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we'll stop grieving? Yeah, so this poem is about impermanence, right? Things don't last forever. That's this, when we chant in the evenings, right? Junmei does a beautiful chanting of the poem. Even as the night darkens the green earth, the wheel turns, death follows birth. Strive through the night with every breath, that you may wait past day, past death. This matter of life and death, the matter of impermanence. Maizumi Roshi, I've been reading his book again also, Appreciate Your Life, and he says, there's a question that people ask. And Dogen, he's quoting Dogen also in Dogen Shobo Genzo Bendowa, endeavor to practice the way. This was the first thing Dogen wrote when he came back from China, and he was afire with Zazen, basically, because he went to China because he wasn't getting what he needed from the masters in Japan. He went to China and practiced with Chan masters there, where they sat and where he was awakened. So in his Shobo Genzo Bendowa, Dogen asks 18 commonly asked questions about Zazen, the practice we're doing now. And the first one was, why do you talk so much about the importance of Zazen? Why is this, are we, our bodies are aching, our minds are just all over the place. Why is it so important to do Zazen? And the answer was simple, because the Buddha did Zazen and he awakened. And we are trying to awaken to our lives as it is. That is the thing. We're not, we're noticing what we're doing, trying to go elsewhere, trying to, distract ourselves from our life as it is now, right? He just sat down and said, I'm not moving until I understand why is there suffering in the world. And so when Roshi says, don't cut any corners, follow the schedule. This is the schedule that, the Buddha, he just sat there. Here, at least we have meals, we have rest periods. This is still kind of an easier version of the Buddha's practice. Maybe we need to go back and just don't move until something happens. So it's interesting because Dogen says to practice, you have to practice Zazen diligently to really realize the impermanence of our lives. And at the same time, you can't look at Zazen, I'm going to practice Zazen to see the impermanence of our lives. There's also, we're just doing Zazen because we're already awakened. We just don't see it. So there's, an interesting line there, right? To not be attached to an outcome, because it may not happen for a while in terms of this awakening to your life. But if you keep practicing, I don't want to promise, but it is the practice from the days of Shakyamuni Buddha for 2,600 years. And the trouble comes in, right? Where does the trouble come in? Maizumi Roshi says it's our self-centered, egocentric thoughts. This is the obstacle to awakening. Me, I, mine, my feeling, my thought, my pain. Your thoughts can be endless. So we're really trying to unify heart, mind here. One, not just stay here, come down into the body. What? Where is that body of mine? I think I know where my head is, but the rest, Okay, so it's a process of just coming back and remembering that you're one. You've got one entity here going. So what has been coming up for me on this session is sadness. Because my cousin just died. I found out on Sunday. She lived in Los Angeles, Keiko Kawabe Ishii, and she's like the oldest of the cousins that I know. And we have a big family, Tanoue family, 11 children from my grandparents and a bunch of cousins. And she was like the oldest at 81. So she just died, and we had been getting together on Zoom because of COVID once a month to try to get our genealogy together as far as we knew up through our grandparents, and then writing a little something about our parents. And she stopped. Her last time she came was this past June because her husband had just died. And her husband was the love of her life. So 7 months later, March 11th, she died of inflammation of the heart, which is interesting because in Chinese medicine, right, the heart has to do with the emotions of sadness, sorrow, grief. There's our lunch. Thank you, Kyoku-san. Have a seat, come on in. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my cousin. She was born in 1941 on January 2nd. And then the war started in 42, I think it was. So she and her parents and a number of our relatives in Los Angeles were boarded up and taken to Heart Mountain, Wyoming, to a concentration camp there. And in the, I guess it's a obituary, her daughter-in-law wrote this. Despite being California born on January 2nd, 1941, she spent her childhood years staring out at the expanse of Heart Mountain, Wyoming, inside of a Japanese internment camp, wondering why there were men with guns pointed at her from the other side of the fence. When the Kawabe family returned to Los Angeles, my mother-in-law fought against severe asthma, racism, cultural and societal gender roles to wear pants and climb trees, become a high school cheerleader and social worker to LA County's juvenile dependents. She married the love of her life, George Sr., in 1965 and became a full-time wife and mother. She founded and became the mayor of Fun City, a room full of playthings and creative wonders for her 3 children. When Carrie Jean, George Jr., and Brent Giro grew up, she went on to pursue her master's and PhD in psychology, her dissertation being the role of cultural sensitivity in treating trauma in the Japanese American community. I didn't know this was her dissertation, so I really want to read it now. She went on to open a thriving private practice as well as serving to treat trauma for first responders in the wake of 9/11. She's lived through Japanese internment, World War II, the 1965 Watts riots, the 1992 Rodney King riots, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, breast cancer, and finally, lung inflammation when she died peacefully in her sleep on March 13, 2023. Through all of her pursuits, she never missed celebrating a single moment in the lives of children and later her grandchildren, Clementine and Theodore. Keiichi was never one to complain, compare, or control. Rather, she faced every hardship with compassion, caring, and courage. She finally got to visit Japan in her late 70s. Upon seeing Mount Fuji for the first time, she teared up. In her house are several of her beautiful paintings. I don't know why I always painted mountains. I suppose I always thought I was painting Heart Mountain. I didn't realize until I saw Mount Fuji that that was what was in my heart the whole time, feeling like I finally was in a place that I belonged. I think that's what I was painting without even realizing it. So feeling like I really belong. So that's the kind of center we are building here, a place where everyone, no matter of faith, color, creed, can belong here. The beautiful foundations of mindfulness teachings that Robert has developed is for all people to learn from, to try and bring some peace to their suffering lives. There are practices that are deep and by no means, because our Zen peacemaker tenets run throughout, it's so important when difficult things arise in our lives that we don't turn away. We don't ruminate on them either, but can we just gently lean in as much as we can for the moment, and then lean back out and just notice what's going on here. It's a very compassionate practice, this bearing witness. Yeah, in my life, certainly. And then letting go of those tightly held beliefs that can get so easily ingrained into, because our brains are very active and very kind of amazing, and we definitely need our brain, no question about it. But can we think clearer? Can we let go so we can think clearer? Any questions? That's what I wanted to share with you today. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It's so interesting. I'm sitting with this sadness, and I don't even, sometimes I notice, my heart being really kind of tight, or tears, starting to flow. But it's just, it's the process of sadness. Any questions or comments? Oh, you want to get the,
That was a really liberating, nurturing talk. Thank you, every word. I really thank you from my heart. I don't know if I have a question. I'm just thinking about that koan from the very beginning. And just feeling it, feeling my way to sort of some kind of original unknowing before answers, but it's just it was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I just love that. May you have the sky over your head and the earth under your feet always. It's always there, right? It's there.
Is that a traditional koan?
It is not in the koan collection I studied, but there's a lot that they're uncovering, these koans about women, actually. Yeah. Which is exciting, right? They're translating more, and so we're learning from the wisdom of women too.
Another question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The poem, where did you find the poem that you read?
I actually found it online. I was looking up information about this marvelous woman, Ziyong Shengru, and it is looks like it is from a book called Eminent Nuns, Women Chan Masters of 17th Century China. That sounds like a potent book.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Eminent Nuns. Any more questions or comments or thoughts or anything? Yep, there's Mr. Ken. Okay.
I don't know if it was the context of a book of about women, but when you read the koan, it seemed to me to have a very almost radical feminist bent to it, where the monk immediately tried to pigeonhole, well, what's the female hero? And she kept trying to widen it back to universality, which is where the Dharma is. And the monk kept, and then showed his frustration, which to me, she turned on its head saying, why are you yelling? Which in modern times is sort of like, well, don't be so emotional, which is what a lot of men will say to women. And I read that as she was able to turn the tables on the monk for trying to pigeonhole her into, well, tell me about female heroes. And she said, the sky's above and the earth is below.
Well, she's saying also that we're all heroes here. There's no hero to, have to emulate. You are a hero. You are a heroine. You have the sky above and the earth below. So don't think less of yourself. Because if you do, then you're breaking a precept there, for sure. You're breaking a precept. You're killing yourself, in a sense.
I don't know if I am. I don't know if I'm reading this into the koan, but the first line's about the 30 blows. Mm-hmm. I wondered if she could be speaking to, people with trauma, or people. Is she speaking to nuns? Is she speaking to monks, or is it an interview, a one-on-one interview? I was trying to understand those first lines.
Let me look at that first line again. She's saying, a monk asked Master Ziyong Chengru, 30 blows, are they the actions of a man or an enlightened being? Mm-hmm. And she answers, just as long as the fellow isn't beaten to death.
Mm-hmm. It's like she's saying, you're still alive. You are, or whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger in
Well,
our
I mean,
common
that
parlance.
could be, but,
Yeah.
yeah, right, because any enlightened person is not going to kill somebody.
Yeah, those words hit me very powerfully. I'll be chewing on that.
Yeah, right. And how many blows do we give ourselves?
Well, an enlightened person would show grace. I would imagine, I mean, an enlightened person wouldn't be beating a person, I mean, they would be more or less teaching them.
Well,
So
sometimes, a blow might be okay, right? If you don't hurt somebody, right? You might. Yeah, so, it depends, right? If, well, maybe somebody can think of a situation, yes.
I was thinking that in this, it was almost an an iconoclastic kind of statement. Like if the king or the ruler delivers 30 blows through his divine right, or is he a man or is he an enlightened being? Probably just a man. That's
Right.
one way to look at it.
Right, because those Zen masters, I mean, they used to like whack people a lot. They're monks, I don't know about 30 blows, but they used to for some kind of enlightenment experience. Some people just need that, right? You need to be out of your head and into your body. It depends what kind of, I don't know what kind of blows they gave each other, but sometimes you need that.
I was at the Zen Mountain Monastery for a retreat once, and they do practice that. I forget what it's called, but they practice
the Kyosaku stick, right, to wake you up.
Yes, I did not.
You did
want
not
to
ask
engage
for
with
it?
that metaphor or that particular
people
practice.
Who have trauma, it's very traumatic for them. But I did.
Did you?
But you ask for it, so they're not doing it out of the blue. So when they go behind you with the stick, they're walking very slowly. When you put your palms together and gasho, they know you're ready, and then they go whack, whack. And if you're sleepy, it's actually a little jolt to wake up. So it's meant to help you. But people who are, traumatized with beatings, perhaps in early life, that was just too much. Even to hear the sound would send them through the roof. And that's why we stopped that practice in our session. We used to do it, but some people just could not handle that. It was too much. So just remember, right, that beautiful statement of everybody has the sky above and the earth below their feet, above their heads. We are all heroes and heroines, even though that might be hard to get, right? By that meaning, we are all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I like to even think more Buddhas, because Bodhisattvas can imply we're striving. We're not totally enlightened yet, but we're helping others so that we can all awaken together. That's absolutely great. But I found myself thinking, oh, I'm not there yet, right? So whatever. Anyway, it's just kind of a mind thing, I think. So if you can remember, you are the Buddha. You are the Buddha in whatever you are doing, whatever life situation you are in. So it could be a sad Buddha sometimes. And it could be a peaceful Buddha sometimes. Maybe it could be a wrathful Buddha at other times. But you're the Buddha. I don't know, could you be a doormat Buddha? Anyway, something to think about, right? Interesting, interesting. All right then, I think that is it. Now have lunch. Thank you.